I think over the next 12 months, you're going to see significant changes in how AI is actually used. I think up until now, there's been a lot of experimenting with things, a lot of people doing things that aren't really that important. But businesses have started to put AI in products now in ways that are really going to make a difference.
Yeah.
And I think the next 12 months, especially because it's been around long enough now for people to really utilize it more effectively than have ever used it before, I think.
Yeah, so it's not just using AI for the sake of using AI. It's then now we understand what it can do. We can get creative with its implementation, right? And how it gets applied, right? So agentic AI being one piece, but you can apply AI in many different capabilities throughout an application. So I definitely agree. You're going to see more where you don't necessarily notice that AI is necessarily powering a feature, right? You say, I really like this feature that automatically categorizes everything that I've been writing in my notes, and it puts together a brief summary form and emails it out. They may not realize that all of that's being done by AI or even think about it. It just kind of, this app that I use just does that. And that's why I like it. And I think you'll see more of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I think it's going to become very ubiquitous. So you've got AI being used by applications and software that you don't even realize. There's going to be major differences in how people communicate with computers. People are starting to get used to now just using a natural language interface
Prompting,
when they talk to the computer. People are, I know, starting to treat their computer like an assistant, and they're talking to them like an assistant. A lot of people are very polite and say please and thank you. Some people are very mean and are very demanding on AI. But I think that whole natural language interface is going to be a massive difference in the way applications are used and the way that computers are used in general. And the other big pillar I think that's going to make a huge difference is when the access to information. I mean, people make a lot about the efficiency gains in using AI, but I think the access to information, better information, and making sure that information is collated and put in ways that make a lot of sense for businesses, that's going to be a huge game changer too in the next 12 months.
Do you think there'll be a big change in people's comfort with building and writing better prompts, right? Because it's like anything. If you start to use OpenAI or Anthropic or whatever it's going to be, is you start with the very basic things that you're trying to do there. It's like, oh, well, can you answer a question about an event, or can you summarize an article for me? Those are primary uses of AI, but you might do something to say, as you get more advanced with prompts, you'll say, I want you to analyze this particular article, but I would like you to provide, your opinion from this perspective, right? So if you're looking at a political topic or something, and say, what would the left say about this? What would the right say about this, right? And where are the overlaps? And it's more of you're kind of guiding the AI to bend to more of what you're interested in, rather than just say, summarize it and just do your best. You can add a lot more of those details. So I think that's part of how we'll see people changing, is that they're going to get better at prompting and know more about what can be done with AI, right? Because most of the time it's very basic. Like when people first got smartphones, it's like, oh, I can check my stocks and the weather. Well, you can do a lot more than that over time, and it's going to become that comfort factor. It might take more time than others, or for some people than others, but I definitely see a change in people's I'll say their ability to use AI and their level of comfort in terms of what they're going to prompt it with.
And I think that's the way AI was introduced. I think in retrospect, it was exactly how it needed to be introduced. It was a consumer tool. People were given the opportunity to just start a chat. They started using it like you would use Google, and using the very basics of it. And then they started to discover a little bit more about it, a little bit more. And now this whole idea that you can really, really change outcomes by changing the prompt and understanding how to communicate with the computer.
Yeah.
It used to be that people became programmers because programmers understood code. Now, people who are comfortable with AI and know exactly how to use it well are learning how to develop prompts and how to write prompts and how to create. I mean, the one product we're writing, we're providing an opportunity to create business instructions to agents, and the ability to use English to tell the computer exactly what you want it to do in certain situations is a game changer, because it takes the ability to have the computer do what you want and gives it to everybody, not just
Yeah,
people who have
democratizes.
learned
You don't
code.
have to be an engineer or a programmer, whatever you want to call it, to be able to do it. If you know what you're looking to do and you have a creative solution to a problem you're having, if you can articulate it, which is a skill in itself, right? That's part of getting better at prompting, that whole prompt engineering side. Just like people get better at writing regular, essays or what have you. So I totally agree. It's definitely going to be, new opportunities for people to interact with computers in different ways, but potentially people that could have built really great apps because they had great ideas, maybe weren't able to do it because they didn't have millions of dollars to go hire a bunch of engineers to build it. They could potentially, create an agent that does 95% of that stuff in an afternoon, but they have to have the idea. So you're kind of opening up for people that have, creative ideas or trying to solve their own problems that other people might have, and giving them a chance to build those things.
It's interesting because there are certain personality profiles that are going to benefit more from AI. Somebody who's inclined to just try things and just get out there and do it, they're going to benefit a lot more than the people who have traditionally been afraid of being wrong or afraid of trying things. You can get results so quickly and throw them away so quickly and try again, that there are people who are going to really benefit from AI. And I think that everybody's going to have to learn to become a little bit more like that.
Yeah.
Because it's not as rigid as it was, and you can be more free flowing and more creative. And those are the types of people that are going to really have the greatest reward and benefit from it.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. It's almost so it's been interesting. So the hesitation to use it because it could be wrong. So yes, you might get some information that might not be factually correct, but by the time you've done that research the old-fashioned way, the person who is using it and a little bit more flexible has gotten answers, but then also have the ability to fact check those answers with AI again, right? Because if it hallucinates, you can even follow up to say, well, that might not make sense in this context, or to say, can you provide me a reference or a footnote for where you got this information, and force the AI to, again, kind of validate what it may have said. So you've done that so much faster, but you have to kind of have that. You still have to have that critical thinking too, right? You have to kind of look at it and say, okay, yes, this is a response. I kind of know what I was getting at, but you know what? This maybe doesn't line up properly. It seems strange. And then follow up again with the prompt. And that goes back to that prompting skills and just getting comfortable with the agents. And whether that's in consumer use or enterprise, the same thing, right? Everyone's always worried about the enterprise number. What if the numbers are wrong? What if the summary of the analysis is wrong? Absolutely, that's a real concern, but it's also introducing the capabilities and then the experience for the person using it to necessarily know, okay, I can start here, but it maybe isn't going to give me the final answer. It might get me to 95%, but I still need to put in a little bit of that human element supervision with it too.
Yeah, people have to realize when they're, and I think most people do.
Yeah,
they have to realize when they're talking to an AI, they're not always going to get the results that they're expecting or that are even correct. I had a funny example where I used an API that had a certain certain limit to the amount of characters that you could put in a field, but I didn't. And it knows this, the system knows that agent knows how long every field is supposed to be, or how long the data, how much data it can take in any field. But I told it to make up a description for the transaction that I asked it to create based on the thing I asked for. So I said, make up a description. It came back and said, I can't enter this transaction because the description's too long.
Okay.
So then I came back, I said, well, you know how long the description's supposed to be. Make a description that fits. Yeah. And it says, okay, I'll do that. So, I mean, it's like I'm talking to this thing which is supposed to be so smart. Yeah. But at the same time, you have to recognize that you're not always going to get exactly what you're expecting. And it's not going to do everything perfectly. And you have to know that and fact check everything, verify. But you're still responsible, because you are still responsible for everything that comes out of that computer, and anything that you publish as your own, anything that you post into your systems or whatever you're using it for. It's you that's responsible for it, and you're just using that as a tool. Yeah, it's another tool to help. Yeah, whether it's a carpenter using a power tool, well, whether the power tool cut too far or too short, it's the carpenter ultimately that is responsible for the quality of the work. But even in that example, as people get more comfortable with the model, you could have potentially changed your prompt because you're anticipating where some of these shortcomings could be. And that's partially what we would do as a software vendor, is that we need to make sure that we're writing agents where our prompts are comprehensive enough that we're going to control the outcomes as much as we can, right? Really basic prompts have really wide variety of possible outcomes.
as you get more specific, the possible outcomes become smaller, right? And more predictable.
Oh, and as you start to use, and I know the tool you're talking about, the agent developer that's in the software, when you start to use it over and over again, you refine those prompts, those instructions to make them very narrow. You get every time you want. You get exactly what you want every time because you've created that prompt or those instructions to do that. But that's what's going to make AI ubiquitous everywhere, because as you get that tailored down to exactly what you want and that result you want every time, your tasks that you run on a regular basis are going to be automated, and you're going to start taking that for granted. People are going to start taking the amount of work that a computer does for them every day for granted, and it's going to basically free up time to do much more valuable things.
Sure. Or even do more in-depth analysis that you would maybe incline not to do, right? Say, okay, I'm trying to make a decision, whether it's in my life or in business. I could go down the path of building a dashboard, running a report, doing some sort of analysis, and maybe I don't have the time for that, so I don't, and I make hopefully the best decision I can. But if you have the AI tools, the barrier to do that thorough analysis is so much lower, right? I can go and add a prompt and I can basically get my results in the next 2 or 3 minutes. So I think you could maybe make an argument that people will ultimately be making better decisions, hopefully, right? Because they're going to have access to the data. They'll be accessible because they'll be able to ask a prompt to get it. And then to be able to analyze the data, you won't necessarily have to be someone that writes reports for a living or dashboards for a living. You can just provide the prompt, say, I'd like to analysis this way, or even go even further to say, how should someone analyze this type of information? Here's my problem. This is a decision I'm trying to make. How could I analyze the data to make a decision? So I think you'll see more people hopefully being a little more thoughtful, maybe using data more than they were doing before, because the barrier to do that is lower.
Yeah. I have a situation where I didn't know what information, what questions to ask initially. And I had this situation where I could upload a monthly report that I run every month for an entire year. And I didn't even know what I was looking for out of this. It was just an experiment. So I took the same report that I printed at the end of every month for a year, uploaded it into AI, and I said, just compare every version of this report and give me any trends or anything that I should be noticing on what's happening here. It came back with the most interesting analysis. It involved customers and customer renewals, and it came back with this very, very sophisticated multi-page analysis of my customer attrition analysis, which gave me information I didn't even know that was information that I should have been looking for before. But now I don't even know what I would do without that. And that's what's going to happen. People are going to get more and more information, and they're going to see what they're going to make adjustments based on that information, which they would never have known. In the past, you didn't know what you didn't know, right?
Yeah.
And now you've got access to information like never before. And those that are really willing to experiment and try and, just do things or ask things that they never thought of before are really going to benefit from this.
Yeah, and those that maybe have taken the time to collect really high quality data in a system, right, that they can then make the system available to the AI to ask those questions, right? And that's always something that, we're in the ERP business. So a big part of our business is building a platform that has structured data, that's accurate, that's reliable, that's connected. And this could potentially unlock, like you kind of mentioned, it unlocks a lot more analysis with that data that maybe was otherwise kind of difficult or maybe really time consuming. So you wonder who's going to kind of benefit the most. It's probably going to be those that have the highest quality data and the most data.
Right.
And then now the ability to analyze it is kind of commoditized. You can do it whatever you want and any way you can think of. But I really think it's going to come down to those that have the best systems, especially if you're thinking about enterprise and more of the commercial side of things. Those that have the best systems, the most organized data to feed the AI will ultimately be able to do the type of analysis that you're talking about.
Yeah, I would say there have been questions asked of me sometimes about what should I do to prepare to utilize AI effectively. And the very first thing I always say is get your data foundation accurate and have integrity in the information that is being used for your AI platform. Because without that, you could be getting just absolute garbage. It's
It'd be hallucinating all the time. Yeah.
oh yeah, and you would, and if you think that you're going to make decisions on this, it's so wrong. This is one of the problems I think people are having right now. There's so many different AI tools, so many places where AI is being utilized, and they all have their own data sources.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a centralized single source of truth as an enterprise, I'm talking about an enterprise implementation. If you don't have an organized, centralized, single source of truth that you know that data is accurate, auditable, able to stand up to any scrutiny that you give it, then anything you layer on top of it with AI is kind of useless.
Yeah, it's garbage in, garbage out, right? And if everybody now has essentially the same tools for data analysis, the only difference between company A and company B is going to be the quality of their data. Quality and then the volume, I think, is obviously a factor as well. But yeah, I think that's going to be a really important factor, and maybe will dictate those that are going to be the most successful with their AI strategy and get the highest return on investment, and those that don't. It might come down to, ironically, the systems that they were using before and the quality of the systems that they were using before, because AI can't make up for missing data, disorganized data or unreliable data. And unfortunately, most of the things in the enterprise are dependent on that data. So you can build great agents that do things, but ultimately you need those agents to also be able to give us answers, and those answers are dependent on that data. So it'll be interesting to see, because there's a bit of a controversy right now of, when is the ROI going to hit for all this AI investments? All these Fortune 500 companies have made massive investments in AI. And there was that study, a few months ago that came back and said, well, we're not really so sure about the ROI just yet. It's not being utilized enough. I think it's partially two things. It's the training, like of actually people getting comfortable using AI, what we talked about, getting better at prompting. But then it's also making sure that the data that those agents have access to, or whatever, AI implementation they have, it's going to ultimately dictate, I think, how successful they ultimately view it, how valuable it is based on the information that those agents are working with. That's a bit of a speculation, I guess, to some extent, but I think that might come out in the next few years, that those that are most successful will be dependent on the underlying platform they're running on.
I think the people that are going to be most successful with AI haven't even really started to utilize it the way that it's going to be utilized. It's the people that are the most aware of what it's going to do for them are preparing now. They're getting everything in order to make the most of AI when they roll out their ultimate strategy. And that's what I was saying. When you want to prepare for it, you get the foundation right. You get the data correct. You make sure that everything is lined up so that when you ask a question of your database, this is something that we've implemented. We were doing it more like a toy, where you could, instead of creating a dashboard or creating a report, you just ask the database a question and it gives you answers. Well, that's kind of like one of those gimmicky things where you're able to say, okay, tell me this. I could have looked that up in a report. I could have, but the bottom line on that is the data that is being accumulated needs to be assembled in a way that is organized properly to get the most information as quickly as possible. It's not going to be so much about asking the database a question. It's going to be, or asking AI a question. It's going to be having AI analyze your data and tell you what you're missing or what you should be looking at. What are the trends that you haven't noticed? What is it that, when you look at my data, what is it that I should be concerned about right now? And you didn't even think of asking that question. Having the right question to ask is 90% of the battle. And AI is going to be bringing those out of people. And the people that are going to be doing that are preparing for that, are getting their data and their systems in order so that it's organized. The people who are playing with it are doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of everything with AI tools. I think there's hundreds. I subscribe to an email where it tells me what the new AI tools are coming in. There's hundreds of these new AI applications available to you every week. If you're just dabbling in these things, it's not going to give you the ROI that the really organized, systematic enterprise will get by planning and executing a very solid AI strategy. There's also security and compliance, all kinds of other issues that come in from that.
And I think those are some unique problems to enterprise, right? It's like, there's one thing, there's the consumer side of AI where like, I have these ingredients, I like a recipe of a certain type of food or whatever it is. But the enterprise perspective of AI, like you mentioned, has to be very different. There's the corporate controls, there's the high availability of the data. And I do want to touch on one thing that you had mentioned that I think is sometimes we even assume that different organizations can just whip up these analysis and these reports that quickly today. I think a lot of people, especially the executive level, they have these questions and they're looking to make decisions fairly quickly, and they don't necessarily have the time to go ask somebody in IT or in their applications group to go whip up a report for them. So that ability to take that high quality data and foundation that we talked about and just be able to ask the question, yes, it'd be even better if it told you what to look at, but even as a more simple level, ask the question, get the report, get the analysis that I can do myself. And I think you've probably found this as well as in terms of what you do is you'll get the report back and you'll realize, well, it did what I asked it to do. But now that I see it almost in real time, I realize that I was kind of asking the wrong question. I need to rephrase it and do it again. And you think about the amount of time that would take if you're having another person go and build reports every time, right? We kind of joke with this internally. You'd feel bad asking someone to go redo it. You'd feel bad asking somebody to change something, tiny little things, but you don't feel that bad when it's an agent. You just ask them to do it differently. And I know personally, when I'm trying to think about a problem or come up with a difficult decision, oftentimes I have to kind of go through a couple of those cycles. I see some data and say, okay, well, that doesn't really help me. Let me change my request a little bit. And being able to do that in real time for like non-technical people, which a lot of executives are, I think will be one of the biggest game changers in the short term. And then hopefully even further, I'm not even asking questions now, it's surfacing those things to me. So I agree on that part, but I think in the short term, you'll be a little bit more intentional, I think, about getting the reports, and then hopefully one day it's just giving it to you.
Actually, and you bring up an interesting point because with the initial asking the question, it will give you results, and then you can ask that to be charted or graphed. And it's always going to then create a different looking graph. I've had it give me different.
You never know quite what you're going to get.
I never know exactly what I'm going to get. Sometimes I'll get a really nice looking pie chart. Sometimes it'll be like it won't even show the labels properly. Sometimes, you never know exactly what it's going to look like. What's really nice about combining these two models, where you can ask it to give you information, you can get it presented in a nice format. But then with proper implementation of what we're doing in our analytics tool, we're saying, okay, I have taught the AI engine how to create a dashboard.
This is what I want right
in
here.
my tool. I want that information every month without me having to ask that question and rely on you to understand exactly what the output is supposed to look like. And now I've given you the training necessary to create that dashboard in our tool that we create dashboards with, and it will then it'll serve that up, and I don't have to think about asking that question. That's now standard operating procedure in my company because that was created initially with AI, but then transferred to a production report. Yeah,
that's where it kind of gets best of both worlds, right? You're using AI as a starting point, but then the application developers, people that are building the software, building the report writing tools, I think, in my opinion, those are the thoughtful features that a software platform can introduce to say, we understand you're going to have the dialogue, here's the data, here's the agent, but then when you reach that point, I need this report, I'd like it on a schedule, or I want others in my organization to use it as their, Bible report, KPI, whatever you want to call it. Having that feature that then can build the dashboard automatically from that chat. That's where I think that as software, development companies and, various platforms, that's where I think the most thoughtful and probably useful features are with AI is that you recognize what people are going to use it for, and then what can we do as a software platform to take it even better. And that's the type of stuff, we've been working on that kind of stuff for a while, but I think those would be things hopefully that you use the most in the short term, right? There's a lot of big picture ideas and hopes, especially for enterprise, about what it's going to do. I think that's probably the more practical short term perspective, what people will do.